The Mayon volcano in northeast Albay province has been showing signs of volcanic activity since last week. A 7-kilometer danger zone has been established around the volcano.
The ground is shaking beneath 105,492 people who have nowhere to run. Mayon Volcano is erupting right now, and the footage coming out of Albay province is unlike anything captured in a generation. Pyroclastic currents are racing down the slopes at speeds that make evacuation impossible. And here is the detail that has volcanologists across the world gripping their desks in silence. The lava dome just cracked. Hi, my name is Daniel, and this is Natural Disasters. What is happening right now? As of May 2026, the Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology, known as PHIVOLCS, has Mayon sitting at alert level 4. Let me put that in context for you, because alert levels matter enormously with this volcano. Alert level 1 means low-level unrest. Alert level 3, which is where Mayon spent most of February 2026, means a hazardous eruption is highly probable. Alert level 4 means a hazardous eruption is imminent or already underway. Alert level 5 is the one nobody wants to say out loud. That means a catastrophic eruption is in progress. Right now, Mayon is one level below that. In the past 72 hours alone, monitoring stations positioned around the volcano's flanks have recorded over 1,200 individual rockfall events. 1,200 in 72 hours. To understand what that number means, picture the summit of this volcano continuously shedding material, the lava dome fracturing and collapsing in fragments, each fragment triggering cascading debris fields that race down the gullies carved into Mayon's near-perfect slopes. Sulfur dioxide emissions, the single most important chemical indicator of what is happening deep inside a volcano, have now reached 6,800 tons per day. In February 2026, when the international volcanological community was already alarmed, that number was 5,530 tons. That reading was described at the time as the highest in 15 years. We just blew past it. A 23% increase in sulfur dioxide output in less than 3 months. And if you understand what sulfur dioxide actually tells us, I will get to that in detail in a moment. You understand why the scientists monitoring those spectrometer stations around Mayon's perimeter are not sleeping. Well, pyroclastic density currents are now being generated from the summit with terrifying regularity. These are not lava flows. Lava flows are slow. You can walk away from a lava flow. Pyroclastic density currents are superheated avalanches of gas, ash, and fragmented rock traveling at speeds exceeding 100 kilometers per hour at temperatures above 800 degrees Celsius. They follow the gullies. They hug the terrain. They are not survivable at close range under any circumstances. In the past week, pyroclastic currents have traveled as far as 7 kilometers from the summit along the Banga, Basud, and Misi gullies. 7 kilometers. The permanent danger zone is 6 kilometers. The currents are already breaching it. PHIVOLCS has expanded the extended danger zone to 8 kilometers on the volcano's most active flanks. But here is what keeps emergency managers awake at night. 105,000 people do not disappear from a landscape just because a government agency draws a circle on a map. The anatomy of Mayon, why this volcano is different. Mayon Volcano rises 2,462 meters above sea level from the Bicol Peninsula in Albay province, in the southeastern part of Luzon Island. And I want you to understand something about this volcano that makes it categorically different from almost every other active volcano on Earth. It is almost geometrically perfect. Mayon is considered one of the most perfectly formed stratovolcanoes on the planet. A stratovolcano, for those who did not spend their college years obsessively reading geological surveys and look, I respect that life choice, I am not judging, is a steep-sided, conical volcano built from alternating layers of hardened lava, volcanic ash, and pyroclastic deposits accumulated over thousands of years of eruptions. The symmetry of Mayon's cone is not just aesthetically striking, it is geologically significant. It means this volcano channels its eruptive energy with extraordinary efficiency. Every gully, every drainage channel on Mayon's flanks has been carved and shaped by centuries of eruptions. The mountain knows exactly where to send its pyroclastic flows. The paths are worn in. The deadliest paths on Mayon are the southeastern and southern gullies. The Bonga Gully in particular has functioned as a pyroclastic superhighway in every major eruption cycle. Communities in barangays positioned at the terminus of these gullies have been destroyed and rebuilt so many times that the cycle has become almost ritualistic. Almost. Until the cycle produces a day when reconstruction is no longer possible. Mayon sits on the Pacific Ring of Fire, the tectonically violent belt of subduction zones and volcanic arcs that encircles the Pacific Ocean. The Philippine Sea Plate subducts beneath the Eurasian Plate at this location, driving the magmatic system that feeds Mayon from reservoirs deep beneath the surface. The magma feeding Mayon is basaltic to andesitic in composition, which means it carries dissolved gases under enormous pressure. When that magma rises and those gases escape, they do so explosively. This is not a gentle volcano. This is not a volcano that produces slow lava fountains you can watch safely from a viewing platform with a cup of coffee. Every major eruption of Mayon has produced casualties. Every single one. Because the mountain offers almost no warning time between escalating unrest and lethal pyroclastic activity. When Mayon decides to move, it moves fast. And right now, Mayon is moving. The timeline of terror, how this eruption unfolded. To understand where we are in May 2026, you need to understand how we got here. Because this eruption did not begin overnight. It built. It escalated in stages. And at each stage, the data gave warnings that the situation was going to get significantly worse. It begins in June 2024. That is the month 5-Volk's ground deformation instruments first registered continuous inflation in Mayon's edifice. GPS stations and electronic tilt meters positioned across the volcano's flanks began recording steady, measurable swelling. The eastern and southeastern sectors showed the most pronounced change. Magma was moving upward from deep reservoirs. The mountain was filling. For months, this inflation continued without triggering a significant surface response. Internally, the pressure was building. Externally, Mayon looked relatively quiet. But volcanologists who study Mayon for a living will tell you, and this is critical, that quiet at the surface does not mean quiet at depth. January 6, 2026, 1:20 in the afternoon, local time. 5-Volks raises Mayon to alert level 3. The announcement is immediate and the response is immediate. Within hours, pyroclastic density currents begin generating from the lava dome at the summit, racing down the Bonga Gully on the southeastern flank. The crisis has officially begun. By January 9th, monitoring stations record 100 pyroclastic density currents in a single 24-hour period. Scientists who have studied Mayon across multiple eruption cycles describe the intensity as exceptional, even by this volcano's dramatic standards. By the end of January, evacuation numbers have climbed past 15,000 displaced residents. Sulfur dioxide crosses 1,000 tons per day. Emergency shelters in Legazpi City and Tabaco City begin straining against their designed capacity. Week 4 of the eruption shatters all earlier projections. Displacement surges beyond 25,000 people. Sulfur dioxide climbs above 3,000 tons per day. The evacuation centers are overcrowded. 5-Volk scientists note publicly that this eruption pattern is fundamentally different from the 2023 crisis, which maintained alert level 3 for 6 months without ever producing sulfur dioxide readings close to current levels. February brings the numbers that alarm the international community. 80,000 displaced, sulfur dioxide peaking at 5,530 tons per day, the highest in 15 years. Research institutions from Japan, the United States, and Europe request access to the monitoring data. And then comes March, and April, and May. The eruption does not de-escalate, it accelerates. By mid-May 2026, the lava dome at the summit has grown to an estimated 4.1 million cubic meters of unstable volcanic material. Ground deformation continues its relentless climb. Seismic activity increases. Pyroclastic currents are reaching 7 kilometers from the summit on the most active flanks. 5-Volks raises the alert to level 4. And 105,492 people are now living inside or adjacent to a zone that the Philippine government's own scientists are describing as imminently life-threatening. The numbers that are terrifying scientists. I want to spend some time on the numbers here, because the numbers are where the real story lives. and the numbers coming out of Mayon in May 2026 are genuinely extraordinary. I have read through a lot of volcanic monitoring data for this channel. A lot. And I am telling you, these readings are in a category of their own. Let us start with sulfur dioxide, 6,800 tons per day as of the latest 5 Oaks measurement release. For context, consider the baseline. When Mayon is quiet, genuinely quiet, between eruption cycles, sulfur dioxide output typically sits below 100 tons per day. When 5 Oaks registered 195 tons per day in early January 2026, that reading was already described as elevated. Scientists monitored it carefully. 6,800 tons per day represents a 34-fold increase over that January baseline. 34 times. In volcanic terms, that is not an escalation, that is a transformation. It indicates an open conduit system, meaning magma is not trapped beneath a sealed dome, but actively circulating, continuously degassing, and being resupplied from deep reservoirs beneath the volcano. The mountain is not exhausting a finite batch of molten rock. Fresh magma keeps arriving. Dr. Maria Antonia Boras, Chief of Volcano Monitoring and Eruption Prediction at 5 Oaks, has been unusually direct in her public briefings during this crisis. The sulfur dioxide signature we are currently observing indicates a deep magmatic supply system operating at full capacity. We are not seeing signs of source exhaustion. The numbers are going in the wrong direction. The lava dome figures are equally alarming. At 4.1 million cubic meters, Mayon's current dome is already larger than the dome that produced catastrophic pyroclastic flows in the 1984 eruption, the event that, for decades, stood as the benchmark for Mayon's destructive capability. That dome reached 2.8 million cubic meters before collapsing and generating flows that traveled 7 kilometers from the summit. The current dome has 39% more material in it, and it is still growing. Ground deformation data shows no reversal. Since June 2024, the continuous inflation of Mayon's eastern and southeastern sectors has not paused, has not plateaued, has not reversed. It has climbed. GPS measurements record cumulative uplift that now exceeds anything in the instrumental record for this volcano. The mountain is swollen with magma pressure in a way that has not been measured before. Seismic monitoring stations record an average of 63 volcanic earthquakes per day. Each tremor represents movement, magma, and volcanic gases surging through rock beneath the surface. The harmonic tremor signatures sustained rhythmic vibrations that indicate fluid movement through volcanic conduits have increased in both frequency and intensity since April. At the United States Geological Survey's Volcano Disaster Assistance Program, scientists who work as international partners with FIVOLCS have begun using language in their internal assessments that you do not hear from USGS volcanologists often. They are describing Mayon's current state as exhibiting precursory indicators consistent with a major eruptive event of significantly greater magnitude than anything observed in the current eruption cycle. In plain language, what has happened so far may be the opening act. 105,000 people in the death zone. I need you to sit with this number for a moment. 105,492 people. That is not the population of a remote, sparsely settled wilderness. The slopes of Mayon Volcano are densely populated agricultural land. The volcanic soil deposited by centuries of eruptions is extraordinarily fertile. Coconut plantations, abaca fields, rice paddies. The agricultural output of this region feeds families across Albay province and beyond. The same geological violence that makes Mayon deadly also makes the land around its base among the most productive in the Philippines. This is the central, brutal paradox of Mayon. The volcano that kills is also the volcano that feeds. And for generations, the people of Albay province have made the calculation, consciously or otherwise, that the productivity of the soil justifies the risk of the mountain. By May 2026, displacement figures have reached 94,000 people across multiple municipalities. 11,000 more remain in areas that emergency orders have designated for evacuation, but where compliance remains incomplete. The logistics of moving this many people are staggering, even under normal circumstances. Under current conditions, with pyroclastic currents already breaching the permanent danger zone boundary, the logistics have become a crisis within a crisis. The evacuation centers are overwhelmed. Government-administered facilities across Legazpi City, Tabaco City, Daraga, and Kamalig are housing populations that in some cases exceed their designed capacity by 250%. The Tabaco City Sports Complex holds 3,400 residents in a facility built for 900. Families sleep on flattened cardboard across concrete floors. Portable sanitation units serve ratios that health officials describe as dangerous. Behind the statistics are people. Rosa Martinez, 67 years old, has survived 4 Mayon eruptions across her lifetime. She evacuated from Barangay Mabanit, carrying a single bag containing her heart medications, her late husband's rosary, and a photograph of her grandchildren. She has been sleeping on a gymnasium floor for 119 days. Her farm, her family's farm, worked by 3 generations, sits inside the extended danger zone, unattended, unharvested. 8-year-old Marco de la Cruz stopped attending school when the evacuations began. His mother tells shelter workers that he wakes screaming several nights a week, that he refuses to sleep without every light in the room turned on, that he asks every single morning the same question, when can we go home? Provincial health officials report a 210% increase in pediatric anxiety presentations at evacuation center medical stations since January. Counseling resources are stretched to the point of functional collapse. There are simply not enough mental health workers to meet the need. The economics are devastating in a way that compounds daily. The Albay Provincial Agriculture Office estimates crop losses at 230 million pesos and climbing. Farmers watch fields they cannot access. Livestock operations are disrupted. Small businesses that depended on the agricultural economy have shuttered. And the rainy season is approaching, which brings a threat that is somehow even less discussed than the eruption itself. The lahar threat nobody is talking about. Okay, so this is the part of the Mayon story that genuinely does not get enough attention. And I find this frustrating every time I cover this volcano, because the lahar threat is not a secondary concern. In some ways, it is the primary long-term kill mechanism. It just operates on a slower, less cinematic timeline than a pyroclastic flow. And slow and unsexy does not trend. So let me make this as clear as I possibly can. A lahar is a volcanic mud flow. When the enormous volumes of loose ash and pyroclastic debris deposited on Mayon's slopes during an eruption cycle get saturated by rainfall specifically, the intense rainfall of the Philippine monsoon season, they do not stay on the slopes, they mobilize. They flow into the river channels that descend from the volcano's flanks, the Anarihan, the Yawa, the Padang, the Busay, and they travel downstream at speeds that can exceed 60 kilometers per hour, carrying boulders and tree trunks in a wall of volcanic mud that can be several meters high. Lahars do not respect the 6-kilometer permanent danger zone. They follow river channels. Those channels extend 15, 20, 25 kilometers from the summit before they reach communities downstream. Communities that received no evacuation order. Communities whose residents watched the volcano from what felt like a safe distance. Communities that are now sitting directly in the path of what the deposited eruption material is going to produce when the monsoon rains arrive. Mayon has already deposited an estimated volume of pyroclastic material across its slopes during this eruption cycle that FIVOLC's geologists describe as the largest single eruption deposit accumulation since 1990. 3. Every heavy rain event, from now through the end of the typhoon season, is a potential lahar trigger, and the Philippine monsoon does not deliver gentle rain, it delivers typhoons. It delivers sustained rainfall events that drop hundreds of millimeters of water in 24 hours onto slopes that are already saturated with loose volcanic debris. The lahar risk from Mayon does not end when the eruption ends. Historical data from the 1993 eruption shows lahar activity persisting for 4 years after the main eruptive phase concluded. 4 years of communities along downstream river channels facing repeated mudflow events, repeated destruction of agricultural land, repeated damage to bridges and road infrastructure, repeated displacement. Right now, emergency planners in Albay province are trying to simultaneously manage an active, escalating volcanic eruption and pre-position lahar warning systems, and brief communities downstream of Mayon's major river channels about a threat that has not arrived yet, but is mathematically certain to come. They are doing all of this with resources that were already stretched before January 6th. One emergency management official in Legazpi City told journalists last week, and I want to read this carefully, because the phrasing matters. We are not planning for what might happen. We are planning for what will happen. The lahars will come. The question is only how large they will be, and whether our warning systems will have enough time to save lives. What history tells us, and why scientists are scared. Mayon Volcano has erupted 57 times since 1616, more than any other Philippine volcano, and among the most active stratovolcanoes on Earth. That rich historical record is precisely what's alarming volcanologists right now. When they compare current warning signs against past eruptions, the patterns they see are making experienced scientists deeply uneasy. The 1,814 eruption sets the darkest benchmark. On February 1st, pyroclastic flows buried the town of Cagsawa in minutes, killing approximately 1,200 people. The Cagsawa church bell tower still protrudes from the debris today, a permanent monument to what Mayon is capable of. In 1897, another major eruption killed over 400 people, again through pyroclastic flows along the southern gullies, again catching communities that thought they were far enough away. The 1984 eruption became the foundation for modern PHIVOLCS monitoring protocols. Pyroclastic flows traveled 7 kilometers from the summit, and the precursory sequence, the seismic activity, ground deformation, and sulfur dioxide escalation became the standard reference for every Mayon assessment since. Then 1993 delivered a brutal lesson about complacency. A sudden explosive eruption killed 77 people, including foreign mountaineers climbing during what seemed like a calm period. Mayon gave almost no warning. That event is why PHIVOLCS maintains permanent danger zones around the volcano's base, regardless of apparent activity. In 2006, Typhoon Durian mobilized lahars from volcanic debris on Mayon's slopes, killing over 1,000 people not from eruption, but from mud flows, a reminder that the hazard doesn't end when the eruption does. Now, in 2026, scientists are drawing direct comparisons to all of it. Sulfur dioxide escalation mirrors 1,984's preclimactic phase. Dome volume already exceeds the 1,984 benchmark. Ground deformation exceeds anything in the instrumental record. The harmonic tremor signature matches the weeks before 1993. Every data point says the same thing. When Mayon's indicators reach this level, what follows is never small. The 3 scenarios. What happens next? BHI-VOLCS and international partners are modeling 3 possible trajectories for Mayon's eruption, each carrying vastly different implications for the 105,000 people displaced across Albay province. Scenario 1 is the one everybody is hoping for. Sulfur dioxide emissions begin a slow, measurable decline. Ground deformation reverses, signaling the deep magmatic supply is pulling back. The lava dome stabilizes through passive extrusion rather than catastrophic collapse. Seismic activity quiets, alert levels are downgraded, and evacuees begin returning home. This is the good one. The current data does not support it. Sulfur dioxide is rising, not falling. Dome volume is growing, not stabilizing. Seismic activity is intensifying, not easing. Scenario 1 isn't impossible. Volcanoes occasionally surprise scientists in positive directions, but nothing in the May 2026 monitoring record suggests it is anywhere close. Scenario 2 is prolonged crisis without catastrophic collapse. Activity grinds on for 6 months or longer. The dome keeps growing, but doesn't structurally fail. Pyroclastic currents continue along established gullies without dramatically extending their reach. Evacuees face displacement measured in seasons, not weeks. Farms go unworked across multiple harvest cycles. Businesses stay shuttered. Communities quietly fracture while news coverage moves on. Widespread casualties are avoided, but at the cost of sustained, invisible suffering that cameras stop documenting after the first few weeks. The 2023 eruption followed roughly this pattern, holding alert level 3 for 6 months. But 2023 never produced sulfur dioxide readings or dome volumes anywhere near current levels. It was a fundamentally different magmatic situation. Treating it as a reliable template for 2026 may be a serious mistake. Scenario 3 is the nightmare. Catastrophic dome collapse triggers a volcanic explosivity index rating of 4 or higher. Pyroclastic flows, exceeding 1,000 degrees Celsius, race down Mayon's flanks at over 120 kilometers per hour, reaching 10 kilometers or beyond from the summit. Warning time is minutes, possibly less. The ash column disrupts aviation across Southeast Asia. Subsequent typhoon seasons bring catastrophic lahars across multiple provinces. This is what Alert Level 4 formally declares as imminent. And this is the scenario that 6,800 daily tons of sulfur dioxide, a 4.1 million cubic meter dome, relentless ground deformation, and escalating harmonic tremors most strongly support. The impossible choice. I want to take a moment away from the data, away from the tonnages and the cubic meters and the alert levels, because there is something about the Mayon story that pure geological analysis cannot capture. And it is the thing that I find myself thinking about long after I close the monitoring reports and turn off the satellite imagery feeds. Why do people stay? Or more precisely, why do people always come back? Mayon has erupted 57 times since 1616. Every single one of those eruptions displaced people. Every single one caused damage to communities on the slopes. Some caused deaths in the hundreds. The community of Kogsawa was literally buried in 1814 and has never been fully rebuilt on its original footprint. And yet, across 4 centuries, the people of Albay province have returned to Mayon's slopes after every single eruption cycle, every one. The answer is the soil, and I mean that both literally and figuratively. Literally, volcanic soil is extraordinarily fertile. The weathered ash and pyroclastic deposits from centuries of Mayon's eruptions have created agricultural land of exceptional productivity. Coconut yields, abaca quality, rice output. The farms on Mayon's slopes produce at rates that comparable non-volcanic land simply cannot match. For families who have worked this land for generations, relocating to safer ground is not just a matter of finding a new house. It means abandoning the source of their livelihood and accepting agricultural land that will never produce what Mayon's soil produces. Figuratively, this land is home in a way that goes beyond economics. The barangays on Mayon's lower slopes have histories, community structures, family networks, cultural identities that are inseparable from the physical location. When Rosa Martinez evacuated with her husband's rosary and her grandchildren's photograph, she was not just leaving a building, she was leaving the only world she has ever known, the world her parents built, the world she raised her children in, the world she expected to die in on her own terms, in her own time. The Philippine government has tried relocation programs multiple times. They have built resettlement communities at safer distances from the volcano and offered displaced families subsidized housing. The programs have had limited success because people come back, because safer ground with lower soil productivity and no community history is not, in any meaningful sense, the same ground. Because the calculation people make when they return to Mayon's slopes is not an irrational one. It is a calculation about quality of life, about community, about identity, and about a risk that feels abstract when the volcano is quiet, until it is not quiet. And then 105,000 people are sleeping on gymnasium floors, and a child named Marco is waking up screaming. The impossible choice that has defined life on Mayon's slopes for 4 centuries remains unchanged in 2026. And there is no policy solution, no resettlement program, no government intervention that has ever fully resolved it, because the resolution requires people to permanently abandon something that is not just property. It is home, and that is a kind of loss that does not fit in any damage assessment spreadsheet. The mountain decides. 1 week from now, PHIVOLCS will release updated monitoring data, sulfur dioxide readings, ground deformation measurements, seismic event counts, dome volume estimates. Those numbers will either confirm what the current trajectory suggests, or they will surprise everyone and begin moving in a more hopeful direction. Science will watch, instruments will record, scientists will analyze and model and issue carefully worded statements that try to convey appropriate urgency without triggering panic. And 105,492 people will wait. Some of them will be in evacuation shelters, sleeping on cardboard, asking shelter workers what the latest readings say. Some of them will be at the edges of the danger zones, in communities that received evacuation recommendations, but not mandatory orders, watching the summit glow red against the dark sky and making their own calculations about when to go. Some of them will be farmers walking the perimeter of their evacuated land, looking at crops they cannot harvest, running the mathematics of ruin in their heads. And above all of them, Mayon will continue doing what it has done for hundreds of thousands of years. It will generate its pyroclastic flows. It will emit its sulfur gases. It will swell with magma pressure from reservoirs kilometers beneath the surface. It will crack and fracture and rebuild and crack again. It will do all of this on its own schedule, according to its own physics, indifferent to the evacuation orders posted in barangay halls and the anxiety medication prescriptions filling up at Legazpi city pharmacies and the nightmares of 8-year-old boys on gymnasium floors. I have covered a lot of volcanic events on this channel: Kilauea, Etna, Merapi, Taal, Campiflegre, and every time I dive deep into one of these stories, I come out the other side with the same feeling. It is a feeling that is difficult to describe accurately without sounding either melodramatic or resigned. It is something like awe, not the pleasant kind of awe you feel watching a beautiful sunset, the other kind, the kind that reminds you that the planet you are living on is not a stable platform that humans occupy permanently. It is an active, dynamic, violent geological system that was here for 4.5 billion years before the first human being looked up at it in confusion, and it will be here long after the last one is gone. Mayon is not a threat to humanity. Mayon is just a volcano doing what volcanoes do. The complication, the tragedy, the crisis, that is what happens when 105,000 human beings build their lives at the base of it. The mountain has no agenda. The mountain has no mercy. The mountain just is. And right now, in May 2026, the mountain is building towards something. What that something turns out to be is not a question science can answer with certainty today. The monitoring data gives us probability ranges and scenario frameworks and alert level classifications. But it does not give us the precise moment when accumulated pressure exceeds structural tolerance. It does not tell us whether the next 72 hours will bring the catastrophic dome collapse that 6,800 tons of daily sulfur dioxide and 4.1 million cubic meters of unstable volcanic material are collectively suggesting is possible. Only Mayon knows that, and Mayon is not talking. If you are new here, hit subscribe. We cover these stories properly on this channel: the science, the people, the history, all of it, because disasters are not entertainment. They are events that happen to human beings, and human beings deserve more than a 30-second clip. Stay safe. I will see you in the next one.